I want you to say this to somebody sitting next to you. Say, don't eat the soup. Don't eat the soup. That's the title. That's the title of the message. Some of you are like, what is he talking about? It is the title of the message that we're going to try to dive into today. I've been excited about this one now for a little while. And before we do dive in, let me just say this. When it comes to a relationship series, and those of you that weren't here last week, we're in the second week of this relationship series now. And it's started off well. We're excited about the direction that it's headed. We're going to pick up steam every single week. So here's the way I'm looking at it. I got to break you in week after week after week. And by the time we get to the third week, fourth week, fifth week, and sixth week of the series, it's going to be good. It's going to be crazy. So just get ready for it. Those of you that this is your first time, you're going to want to come every week of this series. It's one of those. Those of you that are married, this is going to help you. Those of you that want to be married, this is going to help you. Those of you that would rather shoot somebody in the face than get married again, this is going to help you. This is going to help married people, single people, divorced people. This is going to help. If you're a person in this room, it's going to help you. It doesn't matter if you're 12 or 92. This message and this series is going to be helpful. And let me just say this, because here's how people are. I'm just telling you, this is how people are. It's how I am. We want, in a relationship series, what we think would be awesome is 3 ways to fix our relationships in 3 minutes. You know what I mean? 3 ways to fix the relationship in 3 minutes, and that is not how it works. I had a guy come up to me, this is several months ago now, and he said, hey, I treated my wife horribly for 10 years. I've been apologizing to her every single day. I've become a follower of Jesus. I've changed my life around, and it's been a totally different 3 weeks ever since I did that, and I'm trying to figure out why she's not fully on board yet. And I'm like, bro, 3 weeks is probably not going to fix 10 years, you gotta, she's heard this before. She's probably going to need to see some stuff in your life to make sure that you're not full of it like you have been for so long. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, it's not there's no secret sauce. I can't if I could, I would put secret sauce in a squirt gun and just squirt y'all's butt everywhere. You know what I mean? It'd be like, boom, fix it. We'll bring some to Kennesaw. It'd be amazing. But it's not the way it works. It's not going to be tips and tricks. It's going to be truth that changes your life. And I would go so far as to say this. You'll hear people say it's the truth that'll set you free. Technically, that's not true. It's not the truth that'll set you free. It's the truth you apply that'll set you free. Because there's a lot of truth that I know that I've never applied. I know that if I just always eat healthy every day, more than just one meal, that eventually it's going to bring me in the direction I want to go. But I just wish that I could go out for a 5K run on tomorrow afternoon, and when I get back, have dropped 10 pounds. Wouldn't that be amazing, by the way? If you could just go out for a run, exercise one time, and eat one healthy meal, and be like, whoa, where has this been all my life? I mean, that would be amazing, but that's not the way that works, but it's also not the way life works. And today what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to talk about some stuff that I think can really help you, because my goal, and remember, let me back up, sorry. The other thing I want to say is this whole series is about this. From this day forward. Look to somebody that you didn't choose a minute ago and say, from this day forward. From this day forward. And the reason I want to make that clear is because you can't change anything that happened yesterday. You can't change the stupid decision that you made a week ago. You can't change what happened 10 years ago. You can't change what happened 5 years ago. You even can't change what happened 5 minutes ago, right? So it's from this day forward. Don't allow what I'm going to talk about to get you all discouraged, because the first part of this might, if you're not thinking about it correctly, this is about from this day forward. And if we can do this, it'll help us to arrive at a future that we actually like once we get there. And that's my goal for myself, for my family. That's my goal for you as well. And hopefully that's what will happen. If you do have your Bible, Hebrews chapter 12 is where we're going to go. Hebrews chapter 12, it's in the New Testament of the Bible. There's 2 major distinctions. There's an Old Testament. That's the older part. There's a New Testament, and that's the newer part, right? I'm no rocket science. But in this particular passage in Hebrews, it's a New Testament account of something that happened in the Old Testament. Now, fast version is this. You can read about this on your own time. I don't have time to give you all the amazing details. You can go read about it. But there was 2 kids that were born, and they were twins. They were Jacob and Esau. Now, Esau came out first, right? So he was the firstborn twin. He didn't win the race by years or by days. He won the race by minutes. But back then, to win the race by minutes was pretty awesome because the firstborn son got double everything else that the dad would give. So if the dad had $1 million inheritance, the firstborn son would get twice as much as anybody else, which as the firstborn son, I am all for this principle, right? I think that since it was instituted by God back in the day, we should carry it on to completion even now. And not only that, but if you were the firstborn son, you were the executor of the estate. So if there was a challenge that came up or a disagreement about who got what, the oldest son who got twice as much also got to decide how much everybody else got. I mean, this is a win-win proposition. And in this case, this family, this one particular family, this isn't true of me or you, but in this one particular case, the firstborn son was also going to end up, in essence, having the privilege of being like the grandpa of Jesus, okay? So that's really awesome from the standpoint of it was your family line that was going to produce the person that came to this earth and lived a perfect sinless life for 33 years, was crucified on the cross so that your sin could be forgiven, so that the person who was going to change the world from the inside out was going to come through your line, through your family tree. This was all Esau's. As a side note, those of you that like side notes, Esau, his name, this is great. It means hairy man. When Esau came out, he was born with hair over his complete body, which is just awesome. I just would have loved to see little Esau. Can you imagine? The baby comes out and the doctor goes, oh, dear God. That was Esau, the little man. And he comes out all hairy, but he won. So because he won, he gets all the things that I mentioned. But here's the problem. Fast forward through his life, he didn't get any of that. He didn't get a double portion of the inheritance. He didn't get to be the executor of the estate. He did not get to be the one through which Jesus was going to come. All of that went to his little brother Jacob. Now, the problem with that is this. The only way that was possible for him, Esau, to have messed this up, because nobody could have taken this away from Esau. The only way that he could mess it up would be for him to give it away. And one day he had been out hunting, and when he was out hunting, he comes back, and I talked about this a little bit last week, but for those of you that weren't here, you ever said, I am literally starving to death? I mean, but you're not, right? I mean, you're not literally starving to death. Some of us, we could go weeks without food and probably be more healthy than we are right now, but you're probably not literally starving. Well, Esau decided, I'm starving to death. So he comes back home, and when he gets home, he's like, man, I brought all this food, but I can't eat it because I'm not the cook in the family. Jacob was the cook in the family, little chef Jacob. And you got Esau, who was the hunter. He was like the more manly man. And then you got Chef Jacob. He's in the kitchen stirring up his little secret sauce. He's stirring up his lentil soup is what he was doing. You have literally starving to death Esau walks in and is like, God, this house smells amazing. You ever walked inside and somebody's cooking dinner and you're like, this is a joy just to be home, just to smell. It smells so good, I don't even want to eat it. I've actually never said that. But you walk in and you're like, it smells amazing in here. And he walks up and he looks into the soup and he's like, man, that looks awesome. Jacob, hook me up. I'm your brother. Give me some soup. And Jacob says, no. Now, this is the part of the story. Devin and I, my wife, we were talking about this backstage just a minute ago. She's like, why didn't Esau just punch Jacob in the throat and take his soup? I don't know the answer to that question. That's exactly what I would have done. That's such a better plan. Give your little brother a noogie and a wedgie, hang him up on a curtain or something, and then go eat all of his soup. You know what I'm saying? Do whatever you want. But he didn't. And Jacob's like, I ain't giving you none of my soup. And Esau's like, I'll trade you. Jacob's like, I'll trade you for what? Jacob says, I got an idea. I want your birthright. I want the double portion of the inheritance. I want to be the executor of the estate. And I want to be the one through whom Jesus comes into the world. And as stupid as this sounds, as crazy as it seems, the worst trade in all trade history Esau says, sweet. That sounds awesome. Give me some beans. I mean, I cannot think of anything dumber than this. Esau, the hairy man, the hairy wonder, who's the hunter, he's hairy, everything that starts with H, there's him. And he says, I want some of that soup so bad, I'm willing to get, and you got to remember, his family was wealthy. I'm willing to pay millions of dollars for that soup. I'm just telling you, I ain't paying millions of dollars for anything if I'm supposed to eat it next. You know what I'm talking about? It's one thing if you get to enjoy it and live in it, or you get to go to it, but to eat millions of dollars is just, is as asinine as it comes. But he says, that's the trade I want to make. That's exactly what it is that I want to do. And as a result, here's the challenge. Because when we look at Esau, we think about Esau. Esau, let's be honest, is an idiot. But here's where the story takes a turn. When you read this, you find out this is not just a story about Esau. This is a story about us. Because what happens is, in the context of the story, I'm going to show it to you. How many times have we tried to satisfy a momentary want with something that we regretted for years? And so as a result, this New Testament story, in one sense, Esau's no longer known as the hairy baby. Now, for generations, Esau became known as the guy who threw his life away. So watch this. This is what it says in the book of Hebrews. It says, make sure that no one is immoral or godless like Esau. In other words, what a dumb decision. Why would anybody do it? Don't do that. Don't do what Esau did. Don't trade your birthright for a bowl of beans. It's not a good plan. It's not good to trade God's plan for your life for some lentil soup. It wasn't even clam chowder. It wasn't even something like potato soup from O'Charlie's. No, it was bean soup, y'all. Bean soup. Unbelievable. He traded his birthright as the firstborn son for a single meal. You know that afterward, isn't this true, by the way? You know that afterward, when he wanted his father's blessing, he was rejected. It was too late for repentance, even though he begged with bitter tears. Have you ever done something, and I know you have, so this is one of those questions where you might as well just go and be honest. Have you ever done something where the moment you did it, you regretted it? You regretted it while you were still chewing up the last bean that got put in your mouth. You regretted, the moment the beans touched your mouth, you thought to yourself, self, that was a bad trade. That was probably not what I should have done. I think maybe I should have handled this just a little bit differently. Say to somebody next to you again, say, don't eat that soup. Don't eat that soup. Did you know that right now, right this minute, there is a bowl of soup that is simmering with your name on it? You don't see it yet. You don't know it's there. But it doesn't change the fact that it's been simmering for a long time, and they're waiting until just the right moment to serve it up. They'll serve it up to you whenever you don't feel respect at home. They'll serve it up to you whenever you feel like your needs aren't getting met. They'll serve it up to you right about the time you got in an argument with your spouse for the 632nd time in the last 21 days. But then when you get to the office, all of a sudden, everybody there seems to love you and respect you. That's when the soup will show up in your life, and it'll be simmering at just the right temperature. And when you open it up, what's inside the crock pot or the slow cooker will look amazing. You will look inside and you'll be like, that's the best looking soup I've ever seen in my life. That soup smells better than any soup that's ever been prepared. I can't even imagine anything. I can't imagine anybody getting this excited about soup, but just follow the analogy. I cannot believe how good that soup looks. Satan knows how to offer you what you think you need at the time when you think you need it in an effort to try to keep you from everything God has for you. That's the reason that at just the right time, you will get opportunities that you never thought that you were having. That's why, that's a whole nother subject. I'll skip that for just a minute. I'll say that in just a moment. I would say this. Don't allow the Esau syndrome to be true of your life. You say, what's the Esau syndrome? The Esau syndrome is when you trade away your lifelong gift to satisfy a short-term appetite. Don't trade away a lifelong gift for a short-term appetite. I think that there are some things to remember if you want to avoid the soup. And I hope that you do. Because I'm telling you though, even as I am talking to you, there's some soup that you've been stirring that you're still contemplating about digesting when you get out of this place here today. And if you do, it'll cost you everything. But in your mind, you don't know if you can believe me because the soup looks so good and it smells so good and you think it's going to taste so good that in your mind, you think it's worth it. So how do you know? Because like everybody else in this room older than about 5 years old, we've all fallen for it over the course of time. So here's some things that I think you can implement in your life. 4 things to remember if you want to avoid the soup. Here's the first one. Remember that your desires can keep you from your destiny. Your desires can keep you from your destiny. That means this. We have got to stop living as if feeling good is our highest good. Because if you think feeling good is your highest good, you are going to live your entire life having hurt yourself and having hurt a lot of people. If feeling good is our highest good, then we should just go out and we should pay the person on Glade Road. We should just go out and pay the person on Delk Road. We should just go out and we should do whatever it is we need to do to ingest whatever it is we need to ingest, smoke whatever it is we need to smoke, drink whatever it is we need to drink, and do whatever it is we think we want to do if feeling good is our highest good, because some of those things will cause you to feel good for a moment. And we've got to decide if our desires can keep us from our destiny, are we allowing them to do so on a day-by-day basis, even as we speak? Because I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you right now, I don't know what people have told you before, but they will keep you from what God has for you. See, for us, one of the things that I think is so true is that what happened to Esau, when you looked at it, wasn't it a dumb decision? Say yes. Because it was, right, Kennesaw? I mean, it was a dumb decision. What happened to Esau was ridiculous, but it happens to us all the time. It happened to him, and it happened to him quickly. It can happen to you quickly as well. It can happen to you in the amount of time it takes you to swipe on a screen. It can happen to you in the amount of time it takes you to steam up the windows in the backseat of a car. It can happen to you in the amount of time it takes you to rumple the sheets in a hotel room with somebody that's not your spouse. See, now this happened at the last worship experience, so I was prepared this time. Right when you start getting really real, people start getting really quiet. My point is, it can happen fast. It can happen fast whenever you take an extra drink and then you decide to drive. You never thought you were going to get the DUI. You never thought that was going to be you that had their mugshot in the newspaper. You never thought that it was going to be you that had the search warrant for your arrest. You never thought that the bowl of soup was going to lead to that. But you know what you realize? Because we all have at various levels. We have all realized that there is a bowl of soup and it's simmering and it's waiting for just the right time to mess some things up in our lives. And the crazy, dumb thing is we make these ridiculous decisions that everybody else can see are ridiculously dumb decisions. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't always see it. You got to avoid this thing where we allow our desires to keep us from our destiny. Let me go to the next one. The next one is good too. The next one is, this was my favorite one. When your stomach gets empty, your standards get lower. Whatever that means to you is probably true. When your stomach gets empty, your standards get lower. Have you ever been grocery shopping when you were hungry? Have you, those of you that are married, this has happened to me. People that when I'm married, Devin has sent me to the store to buy, hey, would you go pick up a bar of soap? Sure. If I go to pick up one bar of soap when I'm hungry, first of all, why in God's name are there 332 different kinds of soap? I need the soap that takes you from dirty to clean. I don't care if it's white, orange, yellow, green. I don't care if it smells like a begonia or if it smells, I don't care. Just give me a dang piece of soap. You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't need to look like a dove. It doesn't need to look like a peacock. It does not need to look like anything, because all I'm going to be doing is putting it in my armpits and scrubbing and hoping that it makes me clean, right? I am venting right now. There are times you go to grab the toothpaste and you look at the toothpaste and you're like, dear God, there's a lot of toothpaste. How do I know this one's new and improved? Does that mean this one's old and terrible? I mean, what? But when I'm hungry and I go to the grocery store, I'll get sent to buy one bar of soap and I'll come home with $67 worth of groceries. Honey, I needed the ice cream. Honey, these donuts were buy one, get one free, which means I basically got them for free. I'm telling you, honey, I needed this. You know what I'm talking about? Anytime you are hungry, anytime your stomach gets empty, your standards get lower. There have been times where I have been on an extended fast where you go a long time without any food, and you can ask my wife, I will start thinking mustard packets look like something you would get from Ruth Chris. You know what I mean? I'm like, that mustard packet, I love mustard. Mustard is so good. Can I just put my finger in the mustard and lick it off? That seems like that would be amazing. You know you're delusional when you want mustard as your dinner. But when your stomach gets empty, your standard gets lower. That's also why most people, when they have an affair, do it with an uglier woman or an uglier man. Because you thought, listen, I'm serious, you thought it was about love. But what happened is your stomach got empty, and because your stomach got empty, the first person that came along and said that they loved you, you fell for it. I'd drop the mic right now and walk off this stage. When your stomach gets empty. I'm preaching right now. Watch this. Preach it, preacher, preach it. Come on. The Bible says you got to encourage yourself. So I don't care if you're too uncomfortable not to clap. I'll clap for my own self. Kennesaw's losing their mind right now. I'm watching them. I can see them. Dear God. If you walk around hungry all the time, you're going to fall for every lie. That's why you can't believe the 12-year-old boy whenever he tells you that he loves you and you're the only one for him. He said that about a sandwich yesterday. Don't be falling for that. I don't need a person to love me because I serve a God who loves me. I'm complete with or without. That's why people got to understand a boy or a girl will never complete you. You got to be complete without them if you're actually going to enjoy them. Drop the mic again and walk off the stage. That's why people get in a frenzy and they put their spouse in a losing proposition, because if you think that person is going to fulfill your every need, they can't. They were never supposed to. But when your stomach gets empty, your standards get lower, and maybe you'll say, you know what, well, what that means for me, what that means is you're telling me that if I do something wrong, God can't forgive? Of course he can forgive you. He will forgive you. Matter of fact, I contemplated murdering a referee last week. And had I murdered that referee, I would have said, Lord, forgive me for murdering the referee, because the moment I did it, I would have realized that was not the best plan. 7 and 8-year-old basketball is not the time to lose your mind at a referee. But had I killed him, the Lord would have forgave me. But I would have still been in the prisons. There's a difference between forgiveness and consequences. You will have to deal with the consequences even though you have received the forgiveness. Because I can forgive you, but you still have to deal with the repercussions. God can forgive you, but you still have to deal with the repercussions. You can forgive me, but I'll still have to deal with the repercussions. You cannot walk around in sin and still enjoy and live the life that God has for you. Let's keep going. God, I could talk about that one all day. In all you do, think follow through. In all you do, think follow through. In all you do. You say, what do you mean in all I do? In all you do, think follow through. Well, which parts? In all you do, think follow through. Listen, I get it. Now yells louder, but later lasts longer. Now yells louder. I need it now. I need that girl now. I need that piece of cake now. I need that money now. I need that credit card now. Why do you think when a kid becomes a senior in high school, they get inundated with credit card offers? Why do you think? Do you think that's a coincidence and that is like a ploy from the credit card company to just congratulate you on a job well done? Not only regular no, put some cuss words behind that no, because that is not what they're trying to do. They know that if they can get you now, it'll last the rest of your life, because if you get accustomed to debt when you're 18, you won't think it's weird to be in credit card debt when you're 45. They also want you to pay the minimum payment for the rest of your life and think that's normal, so that a $10 meal at a restaurant can end up costing you $342 before it's all said and done. Now yells louder. I need it now. I got to buy it now. I got to purchase it now. I want it now. All my friends got it now. Now yells louder, but later lasts longer. Every time. Every single time. That's the way that it works. In all you do, think follow through. Don't you think that if Esau, if he would have thought to himself, if I give away my birthright, once I'm done with these beans, he gets millions. Once I'm done with these beans, he gets to be the executor of the estate. Once I'm done with these beans, he gets to be Jesus's grandpa. I don't know if the beans are worth it. Had he just taken a few minutes to step back and think it through, don't you think if he would have said, how is this going to affect me 30 years from now instead of 30 seconds from now, maybe he would have made the right decision. But this is the story about us. In all we do, think follow through. What's going to happen if you choose to text and drive? And it may not, listen to me, because this is a big one for me, and I wish I wasn't even talking about it, because this is when, the pot calling the kettle black, or whatever that saying is. I don't even know. There's times where I'm sitting there saying, now kids, whenever y'all start to drive, don't y'all ever even pick up your phones. Don't you ever even worry about it. I've been driving for a long time. I can handle it better than you can. Did you know that kids don't do what you say, they do what you do? So some of us are living out such a bad example, it's not going to affect us directly. What's going to happen is it's going to affect those that are coming behind us, because they watched us and they did what we do, but it affects them differently than it affected us. And I don't want to carry that weight. 30 years from now, if I were to throw it all away on some other woman, I'm trying to imagine myself sitting my kids down in my living room and having this conversation with them saying, Daddy's no longer the pastor of freedom because of this one night stand with this girl. I don't want that to be the way that it all goes down in my life. But I'm telling you, most of the time when people make one decision that leads them in the wrong direction, it's not because they're bad people. It's just because they traded their birthright for a bowl of beans. And what they didn't realize was that inside the bowl of beans, inside the soup, there's bugs. There's things that are in there that you didn't know. That's gross. There's things that were in there, that you didn't know was in there. And there's gigantic flies and a grasshopper that looks like a pterodactyl. There's all this stuff that's inside the bowl of beans, but you can't see it because it's covered up. And it smells so good. You don't smell the flies whenever you smell the beans. That's why we make the decisions that we make. That's why we do the things that we do. When we're not thinking about follow through, it can lead us to make some decisions that cause us to forfeit our future because of some short-term appetite that came our direction. The last one is this. Your entire life can change in just a moment of time. Your entire life. Did you know this? Your entire life can change in just a moment of time. Esau wished that Esau could get it back. And it says that even with tears, he begged. And his brother was like, I am not making that trade back to you. I got what I wanted. I got what I needed. I got it now. You no longer do. And absolutely not will I give it back to you. There are times when the moment you do it, you wish you could change it. But the consequences remain. Your life, in a negative sense, can change in an instant. But the good news is that if your life can change in an instant for the negative, your life can change in an instant for the positive. Remember what I told you that this message in this series was all about. This is not a message or a series designed to make you feel bad for decisions that you made in the past. This is a series and a message designed to help you and me and us and our communities to be able to say, from this day forward, I am not going to trade everything God has for me for a bowl of beans. I'm not going to trade it in. I'm not going to trade in my marriage for a bowl of beans. I'm not going to trade in my relationship for a bowl of beans. I'm not going to trade in my friendships for a bowl of beans. I'm not going to trade in my future for a bowl of beans because it's not worth it down the road. What it seems like right now is that it seems so good and it seems so pleasant and it seems like it's going to satisfy you, and it might for the first bite, but once you are done, you will know, Lord, forgive me. I can't believe I can't believe I did exactly what it is that Esau did. Lord, I wish I could take it back. I wish that I could deal with this differently, but God, I don't even know what to do. When I said that in a moment, your entire life can change for the positive, here's the good news. Even though you can't go back and change what you've done, you can change what you're doing. And what God promises us is this. Those of us that are followers of Jesus, he says to us, in spite of your weaknesses, in spite of your mishaps, in spite of your shortfalls, and even though you've dropped the ball 8 million times, even though you've made a mess out of your life, you don't have to walk through these consequences alone. I can step into your life and do something inside of you and enable you to be able to walk through and navigate this life, knowing that God goes before us, comes behind us, walks beside us, guides our steps, knowing that he's willing to adopt us into our family, knowing that when God sees us, he doesn't see what we did, he sees what Jesus did. And as a result, he doesn't hold his head down and say, that's my stupid son. Isn't that how you feel a lot of times, by the way? I do. I feel like God looks at me sometimes and is like, that's my pastor for the people down there in Ackworth and Kennesaw, Georgia, but he's a little bit special. He's kind of weird. He's the one he's not who he should be. He's not even really who I want him to be. I don't even like him that much. I just needed somebody in Ackworth and Kennesaw. That's kind of how I feel all the time. Then I realized that's not the way God works. God chose you. But if God chose you, it means he also chose me. And that means that God said, I want that jacked up joker to go to Ackworth and Kennesaw, Georgia, because there's a buttload of jacked up jokers down there in Ackworth and Kennesaw, Georgia, who need the touch of God in their life, who need to know that forgiveness is available, who need to know that even though we're not the people we want to be, we are no longer the people that we used to be. That's what God knows. But he knows that about me, but he also knows that about you. From this day forward, I'm not eating that bowl of beans. From this day forward, I'm not settling for less than second best. From this day forward, I'm going to look inside and I'm going to say, that looks good. That smells good. But I ain't touching nothing up inside of there, because God's got a different plan for my life. And it's a plan to prosper me, not to harm me. A plan to give me a hope and a future. A God who said you are his workmanship. That means his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do what God prepared for you to do. That's not just the story of the spiritually elite. That's the story that can be yours from this day forward. And my prayer for us, I didn't yell this much at the 945, but my prayer for us is that God would help us today to walk away from whichever campus it is that you attend We would walk around with our head held high, knowing that this is the day that everything changed. That is, our entire life just changed in a moment of time, right here, right now. Because from this day forward, we're going to swipe right on God's plan for our life instead of swiping right on what we think will bring us joy just because it's disguised as a bowl of beans that looks good, smells good, and will initially taste good. God has a better plan. Would you bow your head and close your eyes all over this room?